and it ends up in our driveways. And the couple times that I've had to use my snow blower this year, rocks got caught in the blades and broke the sear pin. Those little sear pins are actually expensive. So anyway, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
I want to make one comment about the street sweeper. We haven't had one for a while, and we just understand it. We just got it here in town. So as long as we've got some good weather, we can get out there and do some sweeping. But realistically, we may be looking at spring. But that is not to try to make an excuse for everything, but that was an issue that we had, that we didn't have a street sweeper until just recently. So.
And when they sometimes go around and leave, you never know when that bed's full. I drive it. Sometimes that's right where you're at, bed's full. You can't take no more. To come back, sometimes somebody else, the boss says, you got to go do over here. We try to hit them all. We try.
Okay.
But we haven't had a sweeper for over a year, so
All right, well,
The hope is we'll do a lot better,
we'll work on that.
okay, well,
and we'll address this other issue too. So,
awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
Christy Bogut. I just want to welcome the new council members. I'm excited for change. I'm excited to see what you do, and I do support you. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful, and it's going to be fun to see where the city moves on from there and positivity that can come through that. So good luck, guys.
Thanks, Christy.
So on our agenda tonight is Midland Square, and I'm very excited about it. And I just want to give you guys a little. There's going to be a big presentation about it, but just know that the team who worked on that put in a lot of work. We looked at every little thing in that square to make sure it's the best option for our community. And as someone who's been working very closely with our downtown and our businesses, we need this. Like, we need this yesterday. Just for some perspective, in case you're not aware, just in this last month and a half, we've had 2 businesses downtown close that have been here for a while, they're small local businesses. And I would not be surprised if we have anywhere from 1 to 3 more closing this year. This square is necessary to bring people into our community downtown and to get people aware of our businesses and to get them supported. So I just want you to take that into consideration during that presentation, and just know that there was a lot of work that went into the design, a lot of debate, a lot of discussion, a lot of just critical thinking of what's best overall. So, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, public comment period is closed. Council, we have some new council business we need to discuss. Item number A, discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 24-01, approving the final concept plan for the Midland Square, improvements associated with the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant. Are you going to do this, Sean?
Well, we do have the consultant that we engaged to help us do the design, Ben Levinger. He has a presentation, and Mark, I also believe, has a slide that he could talk to about the funding sources. So, Ben, are you with us?
Yeah, right here.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. Ben's done a fantastic job, his team. I would just say, just as an introduction, the mayor went and was able to secure for the city essentially $405,000 to undertake this effort. And that was through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And so, they obviously saw the value and was willing to invest that amount of money in this project. And part of this project, we thought, required expertise of an urban designer, which we engaged Ben to provide those services. We do have a tight timeline, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it to your agenda and to have you be aware of the project and also know what the costs were so that we can move to the next step. So what we're hoping to accomplish tonight is to have the council adopt this resolution approving the final concept plan. From there, Ben will start doing the final renderings and the final design work in order to put it and move it to an engineer who will actually put together the construction documents and the bid documents to have it hopefully bidded by April. The project itself needs to be completed by essentially this time next year, so December 31st of 2024. And so, so while that might seem like we have time, it's important that we keep pace with trying to meet the next deadline, which is to get it bidded in the April timeframe in order to get, good bids and get the contractor engaged and constructing this summer season. So, so with that, I would also say, just for your reference, we have been working with the Planning Commission. They've reviewed this. We've talked about it at several Planning Commission. I'll also probably circle back and talk to them on the next Planning Commission meeting, which will be the 16th. By virtue of the grant requirements, they are involved in this process, and they've been great to work with, and that's all to say that they have been involved reviewing, and their comments have been reflected in this design as well. So with that, I'll go ahead, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay, and turn it over to Ben to take us through some of the design thought process and show you some of the design work.
Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. So thanks for having me here tonight, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't be in person. We're happy to kind of run through this. What we wanted to do is take a chance and talk with the council and explain the process, what's happened so far, and kind of what we've gone through. So what you're going to see up first is our goals and objectives of place-based design, and it had to match the budget as closely as possible. Place-based design basically meant we wanted to have a destination in the downtown. So it wasn't just a random park somewhere. It had to have a purpose, and it had to fit a place, it had to have a style and a design. In the budget matching, we tried as close as we could. Unfortunately, with the cost of things nowadays, as everybody understands all too well, things are a little higher than they probably should have been from the last couple of years, but that is just the way things go nowadays. So kind of the process, we started with the review and the analysis, then we went to programming. We've gone through test fitting, and we're now at this final concepts phase. We've been through all four of these phases so far, and we've had a steering committee we've bounced these ideas off of. We've had other individuals and design professionals go through their plans as well. We've kind of tailored it down to a budget that seems to be reasonable. What we're trying to do is get a good project for a good cost. And so the next step in this process will be to do the layout plans. Once the layout plans are done, we'll hand this off to Jones & Associates, or the engineering firm of choice, to do the construction documents, the layouts, the plans, those kinds of things that will bid it, and hopefully have it out the door in April. As Sean had said, it's really tough to get a contractor to bid in April, but it's important it gets done this year because there really is not another extension opportunity. So as we went through this process, there were a couple of critical design elements. Some of these were from the grant, some of these were from other sources. The two that were really predominantly from the grant were the restrooms. There needed to be a restroom, there needed to be a stage or some kind of amphitheater area. There wanted to be a distinct attractor for the downtown. The space had to fit as many booths as possible for your farmers market. It was to preserve the war memorial and personify the local architectural character of the buildings, and then promote multi-purpose. And everybody knows this space is used for anything and everything. So it's important that it has as many potential uses as possible. These were kind of our design parameters from the day one. This is what we really worked with to make sure we got as many as we could in there while also trying to be as close to the budget as possible. One of the first steps we went through was the site circulation plan. What you see here is just some kind of a linear graphic. I spent a nice afternoon in the fall sitting there and watching how people walk through the plaza. As you can imagine, it's primarily southeast to northwest, with the secondary pathway going around the outside of the site. Around the War Memorial area was the least used. And then there is some site blockage where, as you can see this lower left-hand image right here, the dumpsters are blocking that alleyway. But this was just kind of trying to see how people typically progress through the site, because that tells us how we should plan the area. As we started looking at this, the use analysis, there were plenty of spaces to be used in this area. But unfortunately, with the short wall height and the seawall height and the slope away from the main areas, the clock tower right in the middle kind of blocking that entrance, and then having that hill on the backside along the alleyway really made it a pathway area. It wasn't multi-purpose. It was really meant for using that hardscape area right down the middle. One of the other items to note here is that alleyway appeared to be mostly unused, which is a unique asset, but it's also a challenge because there is a right of access there for that alleyway. As we went through and pulled the GIS data, there's a couple other things that came with it, like this, the parcel maps. There's actually 4 parcels there. It appears that on this east side there may be a dispute of about 1.5 feet of space, and the parcels get a little wonky depending on what platform you use to pull them up, but we'll figure that out as that gets into construction documents. We looked at your traffic analysis. These came straight from UDOT. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything on First West there, but we pulled the numbers we could. No shock, but Tremont Street was the busiest, which shows that your likely parking is going to be down in the municipal parking lot, and you're going to have a fairly steady flow of traffic coming in from that southeast corner. Then we also pulled your utilities. If we're going to put a restroom in, it needs to have electric, it needs to have water, it needs to have sewer. So we wanted to find a location that would try and limit the cost of those connections if at all possible. So that was kind of the analysis process so far. The analysis that was done was based off of GIS data. It was also based on sitting on the site. I got a cup of coffee, sat down there for a while and watched how people use the site. It also had some notes from the downtown manager, from the city staff, from a lot of people to give us more feedback. After about 3 or 4 rounds of edits, we came up with what we're calling the final concept plan, which is what you can see on your screen. So we're going to kind of run through these at a high level. This is looking from the north to the south through the plaza area. And then we're going to kind of pan around. So this will be northeast looking, northwest looking southeast. You can see these covered swing areas in this front, this canopy. It was decided the best way to use the space was to have a stage be flat, with the restroom tucked in behind it. What this does is it allows for more storage area, it gives us more purposeful space. It also eliminates the need for railings or other spaces. You can also, it's currently designed to have a tall enough area where if you want to have a bandstand or a stage in there, you can bring a temporary stage in and elevate that performance if you chose to. But for the rest of the time, you don't need to worry about slip, trip, and fall type items. This is your plan view of the site. Sorry about that. You can see that we've got the 2 grass areas here. These are both flat. The whole site would now be a flat surface. There's this kind of linear pathway going right down the middle. The goal is from this outside area to go look through the arch, past the little water fountain area, into the pavilion, and which this pavilion will have the restroom in the back. We'll also have the maintenance storage room where the hot water heater, boiler, table storage, that kind of stuff will happen. Up on this northern side, you do see the alleyway being repurposed with tables and chairs as is currently closed. The War Memorial is intact, and you'll see that These swings are more for the purpose of having a permanent seat in the area. As we continue to go around the process here, you can see again those swings. The thought is they're more like a porch swing. They're just an inviting area to sit. We've also got lots of landscaping going around. One of the comments that we have is for more trees, more landscaping in this areas. And we 100% agree. We want to do that and add more of these trees in there for the final plan. And we welcome any comments on that topic during this kind of presentation, so feel free to speak up. But what we want to do is also maximize the space for booths and festivals. So there's a balancing act here. The more trees we add, the less space we have for tables and booths until the trees are mature enough they can go underneath it. So we have to balance between those two items. As you can see here in this current rendition, we have the doors going out towards the back of the pavilion. What's going to happen is they're going to go out on the sides. That's already been changed, but the renderings have not until we get through the council meeting. This is looking from a war memorial, so west looking east. You can see the style is the steel or wood frame, metal roofs with some kind of a gusseted plate there. This is from north looking south through the archway. You can see that the city logo emblem is part of that top. Again, if you don't like the logo, it could be Tremont spelled across there, it could be a catchphrase, it could be just about anything. And this is where we get to the circle here. The circle is flush in the ground. Please don't pay attention to that little lip that's there. The purpose the lip is there is to help delineate so people can see what that space is. Currently, that's a 12-foot diameter circle. The goal is to have that be a little bit of a programmed fountain where water spurts out of the city seal. We want to have this look like a city seal. Maybe it's a piece of granite. If you can work with a local partner, or it's stamped into the concrete or etched into the concrete, but it's a space where kids can play. It's also decorative space, and if there's not money for the fountain, if it comes in too high on bid, it could always just be a flat city seal logo. Just a few more quick perspectives of the area. I will note that there's a smaller arch in the southeast corner as well, kind of welcoming and ushering people into the site from all sides. And then this is the festival layout. We went through and programmed the space to see where we could put 10 by 10 stalls or 10 by 10 booths as they're set up. As it is now, with this design, we can get 64 total booths in the area. These booths are, again, the 10 by 10s, but they have a 12-foot aisle in between them, and those can get a little wider, but again, the wider they get, the less you have in the area. This last one is the electrical or the pull boxes. These pull boxes are all flush mount through the entire site. The flush mount is, they can even be in the turf, they can be in the concrete, they can be in all the surfaces, and the goal is to have it be a flat, fully ADA accessible site that is not impeded by a pole or a bollard everywhere. And we want it to be a multi-useful area. So all these little red dots will be a pull box, whether it's in the vegetation or it's in a concrete setting. You can see the sample pictures on the right. And that's kind of the run through for you guys. Any questions I can answer, comments you want to give?
We appreciate the time and effort that you've put into this, and it's sort of opened everybody's eyes, I think, the potential that we have. One question I guess I had is, in the summertime, it's pretty warm, and are there opportunities for, I notice you've got pergolas there and some things, to help with the shade. I understand there's a trade-off between, there's definitely a trade-off here between shade and usefulness of the area. Have you given any of that any thought?
Yeah, and I can tell you, I'm glad we're still on the screen. There's a couple of schools of thought on this one. You can either load the area up and you wait 8 to 10 years, and they're finally tall enough, you limb them up, you get the arborist in annually to make sure they grow the right way. But I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. Can you guys see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay. basically, if we fill these green areas, whatever tents are in those green areas on the inside will not be there. They would only be able to skirt around the outside. So again, we have to balance between the two of them.
Okay.
So the more we add, the less booth space you have available. Currently, I don't have a number in front of me, but I want to say it's 44 or 45 is your current space. So you can lose about 20 booths before you start hindering the amount of space you currently have used for it.
All right, I just had a question on that. I think you've answered it for me.
And I mean, if anybody has any ideas, we're happy to look at them because we agree with you 100%. It's going to be very hot. The only other option we came up with was to put in more shade type structures from day one. So put in some poles with some canvas tarps. Downside is everybody knows it gets a little windy. So, it's kind of a catch-22 on that one.
Jeff had a question for you.
Yeah, actually two items that I wanted to bring up. One is, in many of your slides, you show trees behind the swing pagodas. And the concern that I would have on that is if there is some presentation going on under the covered shelter, will people who bring seats or whatever on the lawns, will they be able to see through to whatever is being presented there?
Yes, they should be able to see through there. And again, when we designed this, it's going to be tough for the first 3 to 5 years. I'm not going to lie about that. It's going to be really tough because when somebody says they want a 15-foot tree, what they don't ever calculate is 3 foot is the root ball, then they kind of like the Christmas tree measuring stick. They angle it in a little bit, so it's really not a 15-foot tree. So until they get to about 20 foot tall, it's going to be a little tough, and you're going to have to limb them up every once in a while. But after year 3 or 5, everybody will be able to see through all the green areas all the way in.
Great, thank you. The other item I have is a wish list. So you show the clock tower, I'll call it a tower, it's a post on the northwest, corner of the property, corner of the property. And one thing I would like to see at the park, whether it's attached to that or elsewhere, is an electronic sign so that we can announce council meetings and other events going on in the city.
So I guess try one more time, just so I make sure I understand it properly. Right here?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So the only comment I have for that is we may need to find a different location for it. I like the idea though. What if we pulled it back to this corner over here?
I'm not sold necessarily on that clock tower part, but I want the visibility for the public to be really good, to be able to see the sign and to convey that.
Understood.
To them.
I'm just trying to keep it out of any DOT right-of-ways for any kind of additional permitting they would need for that process. Just trying to be time sensitive to that.
Thank you. I'm looking to your expertise.
We have,
And we can look at it. And maybe it's one thing where we design it and you get the permit and can add it later.
Yeah.
Lyle?
I have a question also. Looks like a lot of time and effort's been put into the concept. It looks great. Haven't seen any numbers. All I've heard is 405,000 grant. What's the rest of this going to cost?
So the total project is looking at 650 to 675.
Total, that's the total overall?
Yep.
So we're coming out of pocket with 200?
Well,
200.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, the only caveat I'm going to give you is that's what the numbers we have, and if anybody's ever done a construction project in the last 2 years, I'm going to give you the clause we give everybody. No prices are set until bids come in.
Yeah, understood.
we also have, we've been looking at RDA funding we've been saving up RDA funds for several years with the purpose of enhancing Main Street. That would be one source of potential funding, and there's another. I won't say who it is because I daresn't say it without, giving. But we are working with a company that is also very interested in participating in this. So I think we've got the funding that I think we don't need to draw this out of the budget directly.
Mayor?
Sean, am I,
Well,
feel like that's?
Yeah, well, we already appropriated, and there's a slide. I don't know if you want to show the slide, and Mark can walk
Can I
you
ask
through
a
it.
question on
Sure.
design before we move to pricing? I personally don't think we need a water fountain in there. We already
took the words
have,
out of
I'm
my
sorry.
mouth.
We have one already at the library park for the kids to play on. And to me, that would, if you look at it from a plain view, it looks like that's some space we could use for more tents. And I like the idea of the logo. I just don't like the idea and the expense of a water fountain. I would nix that. That's the only thing I.
I agree with Brett on the water thing.
One of the things that, if I could, Mr. Mayor, are you okay if I
Yeah,
kind of speak up? And something we really struggled as a city staff and stakeholder group as we met together, because one of the things we're trying to do is activate the site. And, what we have is a great venue for intentional programming, for events. It's all geared towards that, but we also want passive recreation to occur. People to go into the square when there's not an event going. And that, I think, is best done when there's a reason to go. We felt like we do have a splash pad, and it's well used and well received. Water attracts people. We want to attract people. And that's the reason that, we put in concept a fountain. And I do believe that it will draw people in, and that's what you want. If we only draw people in for events, then I think we miss the mark again. We've talked about Midland Square, its shortcomings. And, for the time that I've been here, it's always been that people don't go into the square. And really, beyond the memorial, there is no reason to go. There's no attraction other than, some green space. So,
Ben, we have a member of the community that wanted to make a comment. Bill, why don't you come up here so we can hear what you have to say?
Well, you talk about planting trees in the green areas and what a problem that is.
Why don't you come over here so he won't be able to hear you unless you're on a microphone.
My thoughts on planting trees in the green areas, since it's a problem for 3 to 5 years, is maybe plant, I don't know how many you plan on planting, but say, we'll just pick 3, just throw that out there. Why not plant 3 on one side and one green section, and 5 years later, plant 3 more on the other side? That way it's less obstructive.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Our other thought was instead of having multiples, instead of having a large volume, focus those efforts on larger trees from day one.
Okay.
So less quantity, more size.
Speaking to the water item, I'm a proponent of the water item for just the reasons that Sean explained. You go over to Logan now, and they've opened up their new one when they tore down the Emporium. They have their mini ice rink. But there's some other attraction to draw people in for when events are not going on, and water definitely draws people.
Mayor, we live in a desert. We are conserving water. We know what happens when that water goes out. It's down, it's gone. We're gonna ask people to conserve water, but we're gonna turn on a fountain. I'm for everything except that fountain too,
Okay,
pretty well.
fair enough.
I like the ice skating rink idea.
Yeah, everybody loves the ice skating rink idea until they get the utility bill.
Yeah.
You remember when we made one out here? Fire department and Public Works put out a tarp and sandbags, and we'd go over there and fill it up the fire truck. Didn't work out real well, but we had one in town.
Any other comments, council?
I have one. When you put in a fountain and you fill it up initially with water, doesn't it just continuously recycle? You might have to add some.
You can't do that if kids are gonna be playing in it.
Right.
It has to be treated as a swimming pool, which means it has to be tested.
It has to drain out.
You have to have a CPO. So
Correct.
if you're gonna recirculate, it has to be chlorinated and tested weekly for bacteria because.
Right.
That's why it's usually a little bit less expensive to put spray and then goes to the drain and never be seen again.
Did I see any water fountains in there?
So the water fountains will be over with the building in the back.
By the restaurant?
That's the other, yeah, that's where we have the other water supply.
Okay.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you very much for the excellent presentation, and I think you've really clarified this for us and the council. Hopefully, you guys have had a chance to kind of get a feel for it as well. I think it'll be a great thing. Thanks, Ben.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Do you want to see the figures? I have
Yes. Yes.
pull up.
Yes.
That one?
You gotta share your screen.
Oh. Out of Zoom. He's still there.
Ben, are you still there? Okay, signed off.
Yeah, I'm still here, but I can leave if you guys need to.
Maybe just to hear this part of it.
Yeah, that's why I was sticking around for.
And these are all numbers that you've heard. It just might make it easier to remember them if you see it, so. All right, the one above that. Yeah, so as the mayor mentioned, we received, and Sean, we received the $405,000 in grant money. And then we have, in the current budget, the fiscal year '24 budget, we have the other, we estimated the total project to be at $580,000 as we were preparing the grant. As Ben said, prices have increased. We didn't know exactly what we were wanting to put in there. That's why we hired Ben as the architectural engineer and somebody who could bring the ideas. And so I put 700,000, kind of the current proposal estimate. Been saying maybe more like 650, 675, but just for numbers here. So it would leave us another 120,000. We have about 810,000 in our RDA fund saved up for purposes like this, for Main Street improvements. And so that's where we would go in and take that money and transfer it over to the Parks Fund. The one thing is, if we're almost caught up on tax increment reimbursement from the Main Street RDA. If there's no more eligible expenses that are submitted to us by the developer of Tremont Center, because he has first rights to those increments, then we can reimburse ourselves for as we receive those tax increments for the next 15, no, how many years?
We get till 2032, I believe.
8, yeah, so 8 more years.
Didn't that get extended?
It did by 2 more years. So we've, I think we have till 2032. And right now, with some of the development that's gone on with the Matheson, I think we're going to see a big jump in increment.
Yeah.
The developer is getting geared up to do, which is good news, this is good news, to do the next section of the canal and try to bury that, to create the second entrance to, again, add more economic development for the city, and for purposes of the RDA will create more taxable value. And so, if he does move forward with that, that's another eligible expense, so he'd still be in the first position. But the long-term outlook, we anticipate that the city is going to receive increment, and this is one of the, this concept of creating a public plaza.
Go up to the slide before, or after that.
Is included in the project area budget for the RDA. So we had always envisioned addressing Midland Square. Just so you know, the RDA has a hard cap of that 17 years or $4.3 million, 4.2?
4.237, yeah.
Yeah, whichever occurs first. And there's a cap on what the developer can receive in increment. And I want to say it's at the 2 million mark. It might be 2.3 or something like that. But nonetheless, I think we've reimbursed them close to 900,000.
900,000.
Yeah, so So I anticipate that the RDA is going to get increment, but we'll get a better understanding when we see the next tax increment, just because we'll know what Matheson's been valued at, and that will start to occur as increment for the RDA.
I think just a little bit more explanation would be good. This RDA was set up, and the developer put his own money out, and as taxes, real estate taxes increase over time, as that land is being developed, those tax increments come into the city, and what we do is we have said, where you fronted the money, we'll reimburse you back the cost of making those improvements. And then at the end of those years, we should have excess money there, hopefully, that we can help improve Tremont and City. But the city didn't put a dime out on this thing. We're simply reimbursing the developer as time goes on and as we receive the money, or if we receive the money, so.
Right. That's right. The developer, bore the risk. It's a post-performance, scenario where they get money after they perform. And just to remind everyone, this project area budget that you see in front of you, all the other taxing entities agreed to and approved and thought that this was not only good for Tremont and within our best interest, but also they felt like it was something that would be helpful for the community to support, and eventually would improve their situation from a property tax. The things we're talking about, the canal and some of these other improvements that the developer had to put in, were barriers to development, unusually, specific to their project. And for all those reasons, that's how we sort of work through the challenges of the site. And in the end, we think everyone's going to be better off for taxing entities, Tremont and City. And so it's
just
a good thing.
important that the public understands that the city hasn't put out one penny on the development. The developer has to put the money into it, and then he is hoping on the come that he's going to improve the property, which increases the tax value, and that those tax increments come into the city, and then we reimburse him if we get them.
Right. That's right. It's good. I'm glad you clarified that.
Okay, good. Any other questions about this project?
One more thing. So there's a resolution before you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Or you're just going to...
And I was just going to say, so there will be one other opportunity for the stakeholder group, I think, to meet and walk through some of these concepts or these comments that have previously been submitted. And so you might see a little bit of change, but fundamentally, I think what you see is what you're approving. And we'll also circle back to the Planning Commission, but barring some minor changes, I think this is
Other
pretty much
changes
it.
like the sign and a few things like that, then that can be taken into account.
Yeah, just some details. I'd like to kind of explore the sign. I'm not sure this is the best location for the sign, but I think your point's well taken of how can we advertise or notice people, and we can work through that issue and try to find the best scenario.
So what we're doing here tonight is adopting the resolution on what we've seen, with the understanding there could be some minor changes.
Minor changes, you're right. And I think what you're saying is that you're supporting the project as generally proposed, and then that'll give us the confidence from a city staff and a designer to go ahead and set the construction drawings and everything else that needs to occur in rapid order to get this project.
And time is of the essence. here.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll
Are we
enter,
approving funds at this point?
So you've already approved a portion of the budget, so then we will do a budget amendment for the remainder of the funds. And so that would be forthcoming.
by that time, we should have a better idea of whether, where the other sources of income, revenue might be.
And partnerships, like you were saying.
Partnerships, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So tonight, we're approving the final concept plan, but this is not the final approval. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I would say it is I think for all intents and purposes, you are approving what you see, more or less. And I just say that technically we'll need to come back and we'll need to amend the budget. You will award a bid to a contractor, so there'll be some additional steps in the process up until, it's under construction.
Well, I'm not really comfortable going forward if I don't know how much we're going to be spending.
Me too.
We need to know, we need to get some bids and find out what that total amount is, because I hate to take too much of that RDA money and put it here when we're planning on putting that in other areas on Main Street. I don't want to tie all our funds up in one place, and so.
Well, you can always do bid alternates, meaning we can bid and then, the fountain, like for example, we talked about the fountain and maybe we bid that as an alternate. So you can pull it, you can make decisions based upon construction prices and bids. But we have given you the best information that we have to date, which is this, roughly 700,000. Ben's, we put a little bit bigger margin for contingency in there, just administratively, but he's saying it's for 650 to 675. And we've showed you where we think those numbers could come, but again, what we know we need to do is put the restroom in, to put the underground electrical vaults, and the stage. Those three elements were part of that $405,000. Other things can become bid alternates.
Flattening, the grubbing work and so forth.
Well, I think that's going to be fundamental to the site. I think it's going to be more maybe like the signs or the archways, and again, we're
And
working.
I think that's where I'm pretty certain that, this company will help us out with that, so.
Yeah.
And if that company comes in and helps and all that, then aren't we going to get closer to original budget?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to have problems all year when we go over budget. But just telling you, if we can stay on budget,
Yeah.
let's pass things, because we've already approved it.
Well, like we talked about, some of these things you could add later on, as the budget would allow, or as you become more comfortable, but the fountain or that piece, I mean, what can't be done is, the site works needs to be done, and some of these incremental improvements that you can anticipate could be added or subtracted as bid alternates.
And I guess what we're looking at here is just the approval of the final concept. Concept doesn't mean final, it means that it's a concept still. So I think that's really what we're looking at the moment.
So, excuse me, so are we going to be presented with an ordinance that says this is the final cost? And
Like we would with a budget on a road improvement or something like that.
So we'll bid it out, and you will get a bid, like we do with most public works projects, where you'll see the high bid, the low bid, and, let's hope we get a lot of bidders, but, 4 or 5 bids, let's say. Then we will present the lowest qualified bidder to you for your approval. And what we would anticipate is potentially, as we put those bid documents and bid schedules together, we would list alternates. And so, on a city staff, we could say, well, this isn't absolutely necessary to be done now. We could do this later, with little expense or less expense. So we can add those alternates in, but ultimately it'll come back to you for approval for the actual award of construction, which is really where you say, this is, we're going to move forward. This is just saying we're moving forward with the design as it's being proposed. That's what you're approving tonight.
But we'll have the alternate down the road. Say the trees are
And the
$40,000, we say we only want 2, so
water fountain or no?
Water fountain or
Sort of
no,
all those kind
things
of
like
things
that.
would be down the road.
we'll be down the road.
Swings, you could make a bid alternate. I'm just saying, I'm not saying we should, but I'm saying those are the kinds of things you could add or subtract.
See what I can do on that.
All right, I think I would entertain a motion on resolution number 24-01. Motion by Jeff. Do I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Blair. Roll call. Let's see, Jeff, the way we do this, Jeff and Blair, is certain things we have to have physically say, you've been here enough that you know. So I'll go ahead and start over here with Wes.
West Side, but I got, I got questions on a few concepts.
Well, this is just the concept at this
Right.
point.
So I vote aye.
Brett, aye on the concept.
I'm voting nay, because I need to see
And Monday.
some type of final determination, is this is what we're doing at this point. I know that there may be additions, down the road and that type of stuff, but we don't know what we're voting on, so I vote nay. Aye for Blair.
Jeff, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 24-02, approving a professional service agreement with Les Olson for information technology services. Mark's been working hard on this. I think Mark will be the best person to explain what's going on.
So for the past 15 years or so, we've been with a current managed IT provider, and they have had a lot of internal shifts and changes and, given us new employees as our contact. And it's gotten to the point where city staff has lost a lot of trust in this current provider. And so we went out and we received a state bid from Les Olson IT, and I'll say Wade Barris in the green shirt over here. He would be our managed IT contact. And he's been working with me, and we've done a couple of revisions of the bid to get it to a point where Tree Mountain City needs currently. What we really like about Les Olson is Wade's based out of Perry or Willard? Perry. And he has 4 guys that work just from Ogden to Malad, and they're all engineers are they engineers? All engineers that they'll work kind of on a rotating team basis, and they'll all get to know our current network and our current environment for IT. And we've used Les Olson for other things in the past, such as our copy machines, and their service is always fantastic. And so as far as cost, I don't even think we'll have to do a budget amendment. The cost just kind of transfers from one to the other. And as far as transferring it over to Les Olson, we have had the discussion with Terralogic. We said we needed to bring it forward to the council first. But they're willing to work with us. Well, it's in their contract. They need to work with us and pass over all of the information to Les Olson. And there's a whole team that does this, that transfers for new clients. And I have full confidence that it will be a much better situation for myself and for all the employees. And I see Lindsay shaking her head, nodding her head over there. So it's time, I think. So
You say no additional cost?
no, not the way that we've structured the contract.
Mark, what is the monthly cost?
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers on there. If you want to scroll down a little bit, Lindsay, it's the one more little bit. It's the 3,190. That'll be the monthly, and then there's some of those others are additional options if we want to like bolster our security or bolster our email or some different options that come along with it. But
Are we going to do those extra
base.
options?
I think so. The state actually just reached out to me. If you scroll up just a little bit, Lindsay, right there. Oh, actually down, right there. So there's that $617 Sentinel-1 protection, and the state came and said that they're going to pay for Sentinel-1 for all municipalities and counties. And so that's $617 a month that we're going to be granted from the state. And so I think with that, we can do all those, we can do those options. I need to understand them better. I told Wade I needed to understand those better before I sign on with them. But I think the additional options aren't, if you scroll down again, Lindsay. Right there. A little bit more. One more.
210.
Yeah, it wasn't much. Yeah, $210. So,
So that falls within our budget. That's what we've been paying for it.
yeah, we've been paying
Actually, this is a little bit less, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, I think we've been paying $3,500 for managed IT. So,
Well, they're a reputable company.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I'll entertain
I'll make
a
a
motion.
motion, we adopt resolution 24-02.
I'll second it.
Motion by Wes and seconded by Lyle Vance. Let's see, Brett?
Red eye.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Blair, aye.
Jeff, aye.
West Eye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
thank you.
Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 24-03, ratifying the River's Edge Phase 1 subdivision development agreement. River's Edge Phase 1 is constructed, and so we're just ratifying the development agreement in this case. Sean, do you have anything we need to be aware of?
I think it's a pretty straightforward agreement. I think the only thing that I would draw your attention to is that they are eligible for impact fee reimbursement from this land, from this phase of their development, when they install the secondary water improvements that are system improvements, specifically the pump station that would service Area 9 and upsizing the distribution beyond what their development would require. But because they have not installed that currently, we're not going to reimburse them. Again, it's a post-performance reimbursement, so they got to perform first. So in the future, when they do install that, we would reimburse them impact fees that we collected from this phase for water. Scroll down if you would a little bit more. I think that's the only thing that's unusual. I put that into the contract just so it was clear how that worked. So, yeah, with that, it's straightforward.
Secondary's all there.
So they put in the distribution lines for this phase, but those aren't system improvements. We're talking about the actual pump station and
Just the upsizing, they have their,
Yep.
it's just the upsize that we're not putting the whole thing in for them. It's just the upsize for
that's
the
what,
capacity.
yeah, that's what they'd be eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah.
Because that's what we collect impact fees for, is for system improvements, and they'd be installing a system improvement.
Any other questions?
Is the River's Edge Phase 1 complete now, other than,
It is. And scroll down. Does everyone know where that is? Maybe we just look at the map real quick. And since City Council isn't involved in these administrative processes for approval, this is Phase 1. It essentially closed the gap from 775 all the way up to where our park and trailhead is. And so I can't remember, I think it's like, I can't see, is it 14, 15
14,
lots?
I think.
14 lots. And so it's mostly installed. There is a little issue relative to some of the asphalt within the bulb portion of the cul-de-sac that we will make them core drill a sample and take it to lab and just test to make sure that it meets specifications, but it just looks really suspicious, and we've already talked to them about it. So what happens is if you lay asphalt when the temperatures are cool and it cools too fast, it's hard to get it to compact, and we think that's what happened. And the bulb section's harder to roll and just essentially work and lay down than other sections. So we're working with the developer. He's aware of it. If it doesn't meet, the city standards, it'll come out and be relayed in the summertime.
Where's that section located?
So
In the bulb, in the bottom.
It's up in that cul-de-sac bulb.
Cul-de-sac.
Drive up in there, you would see it.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed it got most everything done except for the Utopia stuff.
And they did backfill, but then they opened it up again to put Utopia in.
And the the lights and so forth, street lights and so forth, that'll be forthcoming, I'm supposing.
Yeah,
Once
right.
homes go in, start going in.
Yeah.
They don't have time to go.
Okay.
But they did pay the fee in lieu.
Noticed it's reduced the traffic a lot on that one intersection by Rigby Chiropractic.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure.
Reduced it a lot.
Good, good.
Glad they did it.
All right.
I have a question before I mean, what would you do if we decided that we weren't going to approve this? This is back to nuts and bolts again.
Yeah, and so
It's already in place.
it is.
I realize
Right.
what you're doing. You're trying to give us information that, these things are going on, so we have knowledge as a city council, but this, we're not adopting it. It's already in place. It ought to be discussion and consideration
It should
for
be.
resolution number 24
Yeah.
that has been done within city standards. I mean,
And we could search for the right words. We use the ratify rather than approve because you're essentially, concurring with what's already been done previously.
if we didn't approve it.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying.
Sense.
Well, and you have already granted and authorized city staff to enter into these. So one of the things that we did too, because we're going to be talking about a new item that's on for essentially releases, final acceptance and release, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. But we created on the agenda a new section called consent agenda, and I don't know if you're familiar with consent agendas. We've never used them in the past, but we certainly can. Consent agendas are really items that you just approve with one motion, and you're just essentially consenting to what's already been done. It's just the same concept of a warrant register. We've already paid the bills, but we put it on the agenda for you to be aware of and ask questions.
You've done it all within policy that's been set and everything, so, that's understandable to
And
consent.
And so this also falls within that same,
We actually talked about this, if we should have maybe put this down into the consent section of, but it does say ratifying. We're ratifying this,
No,
I'm-
we're
yeah.
adopting too, which is,
well, we're adopting 24 which is ratifying the River's Edge Phase 1
yeah.
development agreement.
Maybe we should put ratifying and not approving and adopting, maybe just,
Instead of it where it says adopting, we're ratifying.
yeah, we can play with the words a little bit.
Well, to me, when you ratify something, you're asking us to support a decision you guys have made.
In the
Okay,
past.
in the
Something that's
past.
happened in the past.
Okay, well, I agree with Lyle. What if that decision wasn't in line with what we wanted, and yet we're going through and approving something that was done? And so, number one, if it's an administrative decision, I don't think we ought to be ratifying it, period, because it's administrative, okay? If it's legislative, then I think we ought to be having the discussion and then approving the ordinance.
That's why I'm wondering if it should have maybe been down in the consent. This is the
You'll have
first
to
time
explain
we've
the
done
consent.
it
it.
is good and important that we know what's going on, so we're aware of what's going on. To actually do an adoption of a resolution it's passed.
Yeah, and I understand where you guys are coming from. I think one of the reasons why I like them in resolutions is just so easy to find and becomes a part of the record. Honestly, that's what we as local government, one of our services is creating records and being transparent and providing records, upon request. And this is, having it in a resolution format makes it really easy to formalize and create the record and then to retrieve the record. And that's why I've been a real advocate of doing resolutions. And administratively, it's easy for us to find, regardless of if the public wants, request a record or not. And these are important records, and it's easy to have them be harder to find.
Well, we're going to have item C and item D that are going to be very similar. They're both ratifications, so.
I have a problem with the word ratifying.
Well, Sean, is it in our capacity here to work a little bit, do some wordsmithing here, you know, or is it, I mean, we're just ratifying,
All you need to do is change ratifying and put it in place of adopting. Then it makes sense.
okay, so, but we're ratifying resolution number 24-02.
Well, and that's where it gets a little tricky. I mean, because usually we don't ratify, you adopt resolutions, you have that's one of the things you do, is you adopt a resolution. City staff doesn't have the ability to, so you wouldn't really be ratifying a resolution, you're adopting a resolution that's ratifying what has been already, the agreement that's already been signed and recorded.
Did the other council people have an opinion on this? Jeff and Blair and Wes?
I understand the concern, and yet appreciate the information. I'm not sure I have comments beyond what have been offered at this point.
I think the only other option is just not to put it on as a resolution, but then we lose that administrative advantage in my mind of having a good record, especially as the years go on, but
But it becomes
that's
a
the
permanent
downside.
record that we approved it, and we never had any knowledge of it until you did it.
Yeah, and I guess the flip side is we could potentially bring these to you ahead of and hold, the process would change and we would become less streamlined otherwise. And that's why we put it in the ordinance that, we could move forward, because developers could be waiting 2 weeks potentially, to wait for this approval. And there was been some changes in the state law. In fact, on your next agenda, you're going to see the state legislature has changed the subdivision process, again, to make it more administrative, to streamline it, to essentially create more units. The state says we're 35,000 units behind, and they have a real interest for affordable housing purposes of trying to see those units come to market. And so they've really tightened down subdivisions process with the idea that it's quicker, more efficient, more streamlined. And you'll see that hopefully on your next agenda on the 16th. So anyways, that would sort of be,
Maybe to get through these next two items here, I mean, even if we ratify the adoption of resolution number 24-03, essentially that's what we're doing, just ratifying the adoption of
of the agreement, yeah, and
It's just a technicality. I'd feel a lot better with this consent agenda that it's easy for everybody to understand that these resolutions are being ratified within Tremont and city policies.
yeah.
I mean, then everybody knows that it happened and we're approving it, and
Yeah, maybe we'd be more transparent in the language and say agreements that have been previously recorded, that staff was authorized to,
then I don't have a problem with it. That's showing permanent record what happened.
Yeah, and I like that, because I understand the hard position you're in. You're asked to vote on something that's already been approved and already done.
Well, if we approved it, did we approve it? Did we approve it?
No, yeah.
That's the rub.
And I think, yeah, maybe, would that solve the issue if we just say that staff already recorded these?
So all these ratifying things that we've done in the past, if they would get put under consent agenda with that extra language on it, then everybody knows on permanent record that it's adopted, but it was done within standards that were already set by policy.
Yeah.
It just makes more sense.
I agree. So if you're inclined to approve it, we will, with those changes, we'll go and change each one.
the motion here.
And we'll go back and we'll add some language.
Consent.
Well, I was just thinking, you can amend the agenda, move it to consent, but we can add that language in the title that says something like it was already approved and recorded, and wordsmith it a little bit. And the next time you see it, you'll see the actual verbiage, and we can continue to refine it till it feels right.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, so we still have these two motion, or we have this motion on the table for resolution number 24-03. And if you want to reword it just a little bit, so that it's in the record, what we're doing, I would
I'll
appreciate
make a
that.
motion for discussion and consideration of ratifying resolution number 24-3 Rivers Edge Phase 1A subdivision development agreement.
Okay, motion by Lyle,
I'll second that one.
second by Wes. See, Lyle, you're up.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Blair, aye.
Jeff, aye.
West Eye.
Brett and A, I'm just not comfortable with it right now.
But if we work through this consent part,
Yeah, that still needs to be explained better.
okay, all right, fair enough. Let's move on here. That motion passes. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 24-04, again ratifying the Mountain View PUD Phase 3 subdivision development agreement. Why don't we just click over there so everybody's aware of where this is at, and maybe a little of the history on it, and there we go.
Yeah, so this is located in proximity to the crossroads. So it is Main Street going east of the crossroad intersection. There are some townhomes that you're probably familiar with. This is the next parcel over that would complete that complex. Originally, it had shown an access onto Main Street, but UDOT at this point is only going to require one, or will only permit one access on Main Street, which is the existing access. And so that access that you see here will not be constructed. The city did get, as part of this development process, they have frontage improvements on Main Street, and we took a fee in lieu, so they paid the current prices for what those improvements would be if they constructed it today. It's just difficult for them to construct a small section of improvements, and that's why we take the fee in lieu. So there is money in the future, albeit, costs will continue to go up, and the costs probably won't equal what we have, but we feel like it's to our advantage to at least collect this fee in lieu at present, rather than trying to, at some future date, talk to homeowners and ask them to pay those improvements. So that's how we handle those issues when the timing is not in the favor of constructing them presently.
Okay,
Oh, they also dedicated some additional right-of-way too, I would just say, on Main Street, is something else to be aware of.
so this would be a good example of how I can clarify in my mind how this is working. Nothing has been, everything is falling within the ordinance and the zoning, and no decisions have been made to go outside of those parameters,
Right,
correct?
correct.
So what you're saying is, as a city staff, you've gone through and approved this plan, and you just want us to agree with you by ratifying it.
Right, right. The mayor signed the agreement already as allowed by again, the city ordinances. We all acted, this whole process unfolded according to adopted ordinances that the council and policies that the council's put in place.
And you guys cannot act outside of those policies, right?
No, it's an administrative decision. And so what we're doing when I say administrative decision in the land use arena is we're applying the ordinances to a specific application or project. And so that's the reason why we can go forward and do what we've done and move forward.
So everything you're doing is within the guidelines that were set.
Correct.
Okay. I can entertain a motion.
Well, this is the same thing we just did with C, so in discussion and consideration of ratifying resolution number 24-4, the Mountain View PUD, Phase 3 subdivision development agreement.
Okay, motion by Lyle Vance. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Blair. See, Blair, you're up.
Blair, aye.
Jeff, aye.
West side.
Brett, nay.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 24-05, repealing the resolution number 20-42, and approving an amended template of the subdivision development agreement. I read through this, and it just clarifies a lot of, I think it made things a lot clearer, and for the developer and for the city. But Sean, you're probably the one that worked mostly on this.
Yeah, I just updated it and made sure that there was a discrepancy I saw. There's a timing when someone records a development, our code says that they have a year to install the public improvements. And I came across one version that said 2 years. So I just wanted to make sure that it reflected our current code. I also added some common language that I include within development agreements in the special condition section. This, again, to sort of go back and prove the point, this is a template development agreement that we use for the agreements that you ratified previously. The only thing that changes is those special conditions that we.
Highlighted areas are the changes.
If you maybe scroll down, I was just going to say special condition section 2. The highlighted areas are what I wanted to draw people's attention to as far as those are what you would fill in the blanks. But this special condition section, all this section right here is really, there's some common issues that we formalize within the development agreement, but there's also some atypical ones like the fee in lieu that I just talked about for frontage improvements, or getting reimbursed through impact fees for system improvements. Those go in this section because it's just not known. They'll vary slightly from development to development. But as a whole, you've already approved the language accepting these specific conditions that are specific to approvals.
I think this is a great idea. It'll speed things up and make sure everybody's getting treated the same.
Yes.
Which is huge.
Correct your spelling on estimate there.
Yeah, I noticed that.
What?
Total spell wrong too,
We'll clean it up.
Mistakes along the way.
That's not Mark, that's me. I'll run the spell check
but
though.
river graduate.
I'll use AI to help.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion, we adopt resolution number 24-5.
I'll second it.
Motion by Lyle Vance, seconded by Brett. Get myself back together here where we're at. Let's see. Jeff, you're up.
West side.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Blair, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for doing the hard thinking here. You guys have been great here tonight. I appreciate it very much. Now I got to see where I'm at. I was full F. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 24-06, approving a template escrow agreement as a financial guarantee for all required public infrastructure improvements associated to city ordinance for subdivisions and site plans.
Into the same thing there, isn't it?
It is, but let me just explain this because I think this is important, and this will lead into, I know we have a consent agenda item, but I do want to talk generally, if it's okay, Mayor, about what we're doing on one of those items because it's a new process. But so when we approve a development, a subdivision, we exact all the public improvements that are proportionate to a development's impact on the city providing services. And I'm talking about, in layman's terms, water lines, secondary water lines, sewer lines, street, roads, curb, gutter, all those public improvements that the city owns. So the developer has a few options. When they record a subdivision, before they record the subdivisions, they go ahead and construct all those improvements, or they can construct a portion of those improvements. But if they don't construct all the improvements before they record the subdivision, and this is obviously after the city's approved their construction drawings and they have approved, city construction drawings to make those public improvements, then they have to provide a financial guarantee. Because once you record the lots, you can start to sell the lots, and we want to make sure that, those end users have improved lots. And in some cases, the roads are dedicated to the city, and we want to make sure those roads are improved. So we have a financial guarantee. There's two methods in our code that allows for this financial guarantee. One is they can just give us a cash bond, and we put it, we hold the money and we release funds to them as they make public improvements and as those public improvements are inspected. So let's say they install the water lines, Paul goes out, checks the water lines, we can release the portion that's in the ground. The second one is this escrow agreement where it's an agreement between three parties, the developer being one, the city being another, and an escrow agent. And so an escrow agent holds the money, and it's typically a bank, and essentially before they will release the funds, they need to get authorization from the city. And so we have a guarantee for those improvements. And if for some reason they don't install those improvements within a year, then the city technically could go in and, pull that financial guarantee and make the improvements. We typically only do that as a worst case scenario because, then we have the same issues that the developer might be having. But we have the ability to have access to money if needs be to actually come to that ultimate obligation to have those public improvements installed.
Have we ever had that issue before, John?
I don't think we have.
A good example is what we talked about earlier. Even though the road's in, we won't release that road money until that road met, even though we released the curb and gutter, everything else, but because that road hasn't met our standard, we're gonna keep that money in escrow until that road is proved to us it's a good, solid road and brought up to whatever standard the surface needs to be. Then we'll release it. But usually, if you do not, it's hard to get that money out of the escrow agents too. It's a difficult task. So it's better to have them complete the work, release the funds that way.
Yeah, we try to work with people. I mean, I have, in some of the previous cities I worked, pulled on that financial guarantee. It is a little harder. It was a different bond. It wasn't an escrow bond. But for example, if the developer's having problems with, with getting fire hydrants, we're not always going to have a better option to get fire hydrants either. And so we do generally try to work with developers in the escrow. This just provides the financial guarantee to do it. And if needs be, we will. But I think it's the worst case scenario.
How many times have you tried to do escrow agreements through a third party? Has Tremont City done that before?
Well, so we used to have letter of credits. There was three options, and the letter of credit was just that. It was just a letter from a lender that said, we'll provide credit. But the problem with that is that that letter would dissolve without the city's ability to know, and that guarantee would sort of disappear unknowingly to the city. And didn't provide enough security to the city, for those scenarios where the development languished. And so we've gone away from that letter of credit to the escrow. And I think we've done, I don't know what Steve was doing. I think he had an escrow agreement. I don't think it was as robust as this template is. And so I had Dustin take a look at it, and I think this is a better agreement, but we have done escrow, and developers prefer it because they get the interest. We won't give interest if they do the cash bond with the city. So.
Because The reason why I ask is I don't know any bank that'll go past a year with those escrows, so,
With a letter of credit?
no, with the letter of credit, but also the escrow agreement. Unless they issue the money, if the money's dispersed and they're paying interest to the bank, then it happens for longer. But the FDIC comes in, and if you do this escrow and there's no funds dispersed, it's an unsecured basically situation, and they hold you to 1 year, and the thing expires, so you got to be really careful.
I'll circle back, because that's what we don't want.
Yeah. A year is as long as a bank can go.
Okay. I'll check into that. So it almost sounds, because I think that was like the letter of credit scenario was essentially a
They were
year.
1 year, and the banks got burned on them, so they kind of stopped doing them. And then what they did is they drove them into a situation where a developer would come in and want a letter of credit. We would then want to issue an escrow, which means that we actually have them sign a note, and we disperse the funds into an account that's being held,
Yeah.
and the interest starts accruing on that money because we dispersed on it. And there are some banks that has a good enough relationship with their customers that they don't disperse money, but I mean, they're gonna call that note in 1 year.
So tell me more, and maybe we just need to talk offline. Maybe let's do that.
You
Okay.
gotta be careful. Tremont City's gotta be careful.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is something we need to look into a little further. Are we ready to do anything about it tonight, or do you want to revisit this a little bit, council?
I think with Lyle has said, I believe we need to put it on hold so that we get it wrote the first time.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
We have, yeah. And maybe you and I can
Come in
visit.
next couple of days, and we can give a call over to the bank and follow through with it.
Okay. That'd be great.
Want to make that
So what do we do there? Just make a motion that we table resolution 24-06?
Okay. And motion by Wes to table resolution number 24-06. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Brett. Let's see.
I think we're back to me, Wes, I.
Did I?
Lyle Vance, aye.
Blair, aye.
Motion is tabled. Thank you. All right, this is the sort of the first time that we've done this consent agenda. I remember way back in the day, a long time ago, we used to do them. But and the idea here is that we discuss all of the different ratifications. In this case, the of 24-07, 08, and 09 ratifications of Spring Acres number 7, Tremont Place number 2, and Tremont Place number 3, and also the financial statements and the warrant register. And we first of all, we need to have some discussion. Is there any discussion on any of these that we need to bring out?
Mr. Mayor, could I just talk real quick about the acceptance portion? There's 3 on here that we're doing differently, and it's actually more in line with city ordinances. So one of the powers and duties of the city manager is that they're authorized to release these financial guarantees that we talked about and to accept the subdivision. But it does require that it is on the city council's agenda. Again, I think the best mechanism from an administrative perspective is to have these resolutions because, as I mentioned, they're easy to retrieve. And the reason why that's important is because at the end of each fiscal year, our finance director, Curtis, goes and tries to find what subdivision improvements we've accepted so that he can list it on as assets for the city and accurately reflect it in the financial statements of what assets we have and essentially we use those assets to determine the amount of revenue we're going to need to replace in the future those assets. So this again just provides a real easy way to formalize that process, and as I mentioned, it is consistent with the code. So I should have been doing this years ago. But it came to my attention now that, Steve's gone and as I've been involved in the process and as we refined the process, I think it is best if it's done this way. But I realize that we've already, Chris has written a letter that has accepted and authorized the release of the financial guarantee. The other thing that I think is really helpful with this process is we can look at those special conditions. It gives us a kind of a milepost to go back and look at the special conditions to make sure that they fulfilled all those special conditions in the development agreement. So there's two exhibits. One's the letter from the engineer that's accepting and the improvements and authorizing the release. The other one is just showing those special conditions that have been reviewed and found in compliance.
Mayor, remind me, Tremont Place 2 and 3?
Down by the steak center, South Steak Center.
Oh. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna give this a try here. We can do this in one motion, if the council agrees to it, including the financial statements in the warrant register.
So, would this be the right way? Make a motion, we adopt resolution 2407, 2408, 2409, and approve the November financial statement and approve the November warrant register.
Well done.
Can we say, just for future,
Mhm.
can we say, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda?
That's another way to do it. Yeah.
I like that way better.
Okay,
Just saying
restate
that.
it then, Wes. That's the way we'll do it.
Talking, right?
Okay, I made the motion.
You wanna stick with the way you said it?
He said
Yes.
it. Let's
We'll do
follow.
it that way once, and then the right way the next time.
All right, Brett. Well, we need a second.
second it.
Okay, Brett.
Brett, I like the way this is laid out.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Blair, aye.
Jeff, aye.
What's I?
Wes made the motion and Lyle Vance seconded that motion. All right, that completes our work. We're down to the calendar items. Let's see what we got coming up here. Any questions on any of that? Let's see, anything that, our next council meeting will be on the 16th. And we are meeting with Natalie Gochner. I keep forgetting. She is the gal down there with the Ken Gardner Institute that we met that one day.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk to her about, she's going to give us all the information we'd ever want to know about Tremont, I think. But we're going to go down on the 9th, a week from today. If there's anybody that would like to go down, we'd love to take you with us. So just let me know if you.
We're going down to Salt Lake and meeting her office down there.
And EDC Utah.
Just for Mayor and staff, Natalie does demographics.
That's, the demographic information and I think she has a wealth of, Kim Gardner has a wealth of information, so we want to tap into as much of it as we can.
I wouldn't mind going if there's room.
Yeah, we'll make room. Okay, let's see. How about reports and comments? Sean, do you have anything to share with us administrative-wise? Okay. DRC?
We have DRC tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We're going to be revisiting a subdivision that's previously been on hold for a while until the developer acquired some of the radiuses right away needed. But it's where Craig Christensen lived in that area, so it's 2300 west, 810 north. There's the subdivision proposed there.
That you'll go right through Craig's place to get to?
Well,
Gonna tie into the other,
Sooner or later, it'll tie in going west, but yeah, that will be the main road in.
yeah. The other thing I would just draw your attention as far as administratively, we do have quite a few construction projects that are somewhere in the process, and we're gonna meet as a staff and work with our engineer. But one of those projects that I wanted to bring to your attention is the 1000 North project. As you know, that's a project that we're trying to bring for construction this next construction season. It requires us to acquire right-of-ways, and we've been hindered by several different issues, but we're finally to a point where Mark has signed over offers of just compensation. I think that's the term they used. Yeah, administrative cost estimate. All that's to say is that our acquisition agent is going to be reaching out to the property owners and, acquiring those properties. So you may or may not hear from property owners that's going, but that's where we're at in the process is,
hope easements.
yes, yep. So it's moving forward slower than we had hoped, and we're a little behind where we anticipated to be, but hopefully the residents can get on board and accept those offers, understanding, that they're getting compensation and they're going to get a road.
Because of it, too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is that all you have, Sean?
I believe so. You have anything, Mark?
Department head reports. Paul, do you have anything for us?
No, right, I think Wes already told you, we got our sweeper, got to get trained on it now.
Good. And we got service area 4 that's sort of in the,
Yeah, it's bid out, it's just waiting for construction.
they're just kind of been expecting something to happen. I think he thinks he can try to.
He told me, he said there's a couple other projects, and if the weather stays good, he's gonna start.
Soon.
He's got some pipe and all that, so. But you can't dig when it's deep frost in the ground or,
Right.
so he's trying to get there.
Paul, in response to the extra gravel on the roads and that type of stuff, isn't the response to just to kick it back on the road, and then when it gets hot, it'll be pushed into the tar? Tell them to leave the gravel?
Yeah, and we'll pick it up as, as we sweep the gutters, we'll pick it back, what doesn't get pushed in, but.
You're gonna put it back on the road again, so it gets pushed in. So the problem,
That's the surface you want.
yeah, you want it back on the road. And people, we're getting a lot of complaints on that, but the contractor came in later in the season, it didn't get pushed into the tar, and
But he came in on time. We suffer this every chip seal. It's just this time, we did a whole bunch of town instead of just bits and pieces here and there.
yeah.
So, even if you come down my little street down in the hood, you'll see gravel that's off of a chip seal. And that happened 6 years ago when gravel still comes up with pushing snow.
So our response should be just push that gravel back onto the road, and then when it gets hot, it'll become part of the road when that tar starts melting.
I thought it was a good chip seal and fog coat this time.
Well,
No?
there's been a rash of things on Facebook. We just need to get that information out, that leave it on the road, push it back on the road.
It'll be hard to pound back in next summer, though. There's a percentage that's gonna come off no matter what you
But
do.
our sweeper will pick some of that
But
up.
we'll get that with the sweeper.
We haven't, in years past, we've still been sweeping
Right.
after we do a chip seal. So that stuff has been up, not as noticeable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief, you have anything for us tonight?
Just quickly, just a quick comment. We had just a little bit of a busy holiday season, so I thought it was worth mentioning in front of you. So when you see the firefighting team, the EMS, give them a little pat on the back through the holidays, Christmas Eve day, Christmas Day, through the holidays, just steady. People are having crises, and the team just really stepped up and met those needs, particularly New Year's Eve day. 2 back-to-back working structure fires. And the team really stepped up and covered those. And we worked closely with Garland as we do to make sure we're also covered. But while myself included, while we're enjoying our holidays and the time, there were people in the community having crisis, and our team was really, really helping carry that load. Both the on-duty crews and the off-duty people coming from home did a fantastic job to cover us through a busy holiday season. So pat them on the back when you see them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bet.
Yeah. Sarah, do you have anything for us? You've already said your piece, haven't you? Yeah. Zach, oh my heck. I'm sorry, I lost my.
Even he can't even, you can't spell it and he can't say it.
Zach, do you have anything for us tonight?
Just one thing, this year, one of our goals is to promote health and wellness. It's something we already do, but we don't specify that is what we do. And that's all Park and Recreation is about, kind of, is health and wellness and providing health and wellness to the community, to individuals, and physically and mentally. So that's something that we're striving to push. That is what we do. That's why we play sports. That's why we do arts. That's why we have events, that kind of thing. So it's something we're going to make an effort for this year, and something the state is also working towards. So just want to
Thanks, Zach. Mark, do you have anything? Lindsay? Council reports. Let's see.
Start with the newbies.
Start with the newbie? Okay.
Nothing to offer.
Nothing.
I have about a 40-minute presentation.
Oh, we'll love to hear it.
I'm good, thanks.
Hey, Zach, and follow up, when we went down to the City of Leagues, they always give out, certificates of healthy cities? Is that kind of what we're trying to do, is get that approval, or have you thought about that?
Oh, get Healthy Utah. And as Lyle, you mentioned to it, we're doing all of these things.
Yeah.
I think we might have to do like maybe one more, which is give out gun safes or gun locks.
Locks.
Something small, but we're pretty much doing all the criteria for it.
I think it'd be good to get acknowledgement that we're trying to focus on those areas as a community.
We've been doing this, we just got to tell people.
Yeah.
If I could comment to that. So the Suicide Prevention Coalition oftentimes gives out the gun locks.
Okay.
At the parades and elsewhere, because I help hand a bunch of those out. So.
Yeah,
FYI.
because I know that's one of they have a whole bunch of options you can do, and one of those, I think a lot of cities do that kind of stuff.
If the clubs in town know what you're trying to do, they'll support those kind of things too. The Women's Civic Club, the Kiwanis, the Lions, they would help support those kind of things too.
I'll bet
What you're trying to do.
Chief Cordova could find a few bucks for gun safes too, and $1,000 or something. Or I mean,
Gun locks?
gun locks. If he gets gun safes, I want one. Need one.
Brett, you have anything?
In response to the ordinance on trailers, it is 24 hours. So he's right on that. When I was in Vacaville, I called them and asked them about if I had a motorhome and I wanted to park out in front, as a visitor, I could stay up to 7 days parked in front of a house, my daughter's house, right? So if you're there visiting, they've built that into their ordinance. I wonder do we have that kind of need here? I wonder.
Can I say no? If you're plowing, if you're doing sweeping, and there's trailers out on the road for 2 or 3 days, and
Yeah.
I'm all about even the ordinance of getting your garbage cans off in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And they don't catch us on YouTube blowing them out with the snowplow.
I mean, we're not a tourist city where a lot of people come and stay, but in some of those larger cities, you've got nowhere to pull. That's the only place you can park, and everyone parks on the street.
I think it's something that we need to address,
Why?
Again, yeah.
And then the only other thing I have is I've talked to Sean, Mark, and I liked your responses to my garbage can idea. I'd like us to see us keep moving forward with that idea, but concentrate more on, Sean mentioned this, more on, instead of finding a group like cancer awareness or something like that, let's do something that benefits the city, like maybe the pantry or something that people can, it's a win-win for everyone, and go with like a fun garbage can, an orange or something like that, but because the pricing's the same as the normal ones.
Since you would do the prices the same.
Yeah, and we only,
For the smaller batches.
and we only need,
At least for breast cancer awareness. I don't know, it might change.
Yeah.
Another need.
yeah.
She was real excited about it.
And then we could do up to, and it's only 20 cans. And so that's not that much of an investment. And I'd love to see people contribute. I really think once we got some orange cans, let's say they're orange, out and people start seeing those, they're like, well, what's this all about? And then, oh, well, I'm supporting the pantry. And then I think other people will start to jump on board. And then I think we might be able to help out our pantry a lot. So
Great idea.
I'd like to see us not drop the idea until we decide we want to or don't want to do it.
Can you look into that a little more?
We've looked into it in detail, haven't we?
All right.
So I think it's just a matter of can we build? I think there's some administrative concerns possibly.
Well, Curtis is coming, and we'll circle up as administrative team involving finance, Shari, the billing, and Paul, and we'll come up with some.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what he's talking, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, do you guys have an idea?
Yeah, I just proposed that.
Commented. I'm done.
Yeah,
You did, didn't you?
I think it's it's your turn.
I think it's Wes's turn.
I don't have any, it's just thanks. I mean, Christmas is over, lights should be gone tomorrow, and by the end of the week, you won't see
Arnie?
no hiding her hair.
I handed out some books for Blair and Jeff. I handed you out kind of a history of Tremont, written by Marianne Matney Valenta. She did a fantastic job, and everybody else should have one. I thought that would be good for you guys. It's just a great reference to go back and look at, and and all that kind of thing. And then we've talked a little bit about the possibility of doing some kind of a retreat where we could meet as a council and sort of talk about what's important to us and that kind of thing. And with that in mind, I gave each of you one of these books. It's called 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. It's sort of a satire, but it goes through and walks through a lot of great things that we can be thinking about when we sit on this side of the desk. And I know some communities have taken a chapter and they've discussed it, and that kind of thing. But I would suggest you do, at least go through and see what it's all about. But like I said, it's sort of this. It's a satire, and it's fun. It's kind of fun to read. And actually, if there's anybody out here, we have quite a few books. If there's anybody that would like a copy of this, we'd love to give it to you. So, anyway, I wanted to welcome Jeff, Blair. Thank you. We're excited to be able to work with you, and I think it's going to be a great council. I'm excited about as I step back and sort of think a little bit, and the skill set that's sitting up here on this dais, it's pretty amazing. And we each have strengths that I think can lend themselves to the success of our community, and I'm excited to work with all of you, and of course with Mark and Sean and Lindsay and Sarah and Brady and
Brady
Paul
and
and
Christie and
all the
everybody.
Yeah, and Christie. There you
Jack.
go. We're excited that you're here with us,
Gee.
and you stuck it out. You
Yeah, you did.
yeah.
I'm looking at the clock.
I'll bet you're looking at the.
So are we.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking it out with us tonight. I have one more motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second it.
Okay, I think we're good for the night. Thank you, everybody.
Where's the metal apartments?
Come on.
Feels a little awkward, actually.
600 West, 7th West.
There's a whole lot I don't even know about. So I'll tell you that right now.
It's fun. It's a fun.
I'm like-
Have you heard of it before?
Yeah, I have.
It's,
Yeah,
Can I dunk your mine?
the ratifying thing is still,
Ah,
like the River's Edge got
When he was talking about.
approved, right?
Feature.
yeah.
So the change, did that get approved by the city council? The smaller lots, or is that?
That's one of the, yeah, that's one thing that, especially with the surface, when you're only looking at basically a splash pad. If you look at the, I kind of look at it maybe from a standpoint of water as an attraction.
I just,
You know, and it's.
and I just, because I have,
The area.
I live, that's my backyard, so I
Already
know,
been done.
Again,
know more about that one, so.
Doing an ordinance to ratify.